All right, hi everybody. This video will cover surveys and using them in your testing. We've got a few topics that we're going to cover. The first is going to be, generally like what I use to create surveys, the different types of questions you can ask, and just sort of go over that process a little bit. And then we'll start talking more about why surveys are the perfect sort of like ending to a lot of your tests, how they can help you collect more effective asynchronous feedback and data. So imagine you're not conducting the test in person, but you're either like remote or it's a test that you're conducting where you allow the test subject to complete it sort of like on their own time. And then we'll also look at like the different types of questions and how they relate to the different types of data that we have covered in the past in this class. So mostly quantitative and qualitative data. All right, so let me switch over to the monitor and we'll get started here. So I use Google Forms. I find it is more than adequate for pretty much all of the surveys that I create. There's only 2 here. This is like my personal account, but at work we also use Google Forms. And again, it just allows us to very quickly ramp up surveys and sort of collect all the data in one place. There's a lot of like analytical tools that you can use at any point during the time in which you're collecting survey data from. And I'll go over that as well. So this is Google Forms. There's a link for it inside of this surveys page in the week 6 module. All right. And all we're going to do here is, start by hitting blank form, okay? So these are all different like types of forms that you can create. We're just going to start with blank form, all right? And so as I do this, I'm going to be sort of covering those other topics and, showing you that as well. So let's start with why they're the perfect end to your tests a lot of times. So imagine you're either like in person or remote, and the test subject completes the test, whether they had issues or not that you've recorded. This is just kind of like the last opportunity for them to give you free form feedback. So that's the first type of question that we're going to start with, is just called free form feedback. So this is going to collect high quality qualitative information from your test subject. Okay, so let's just call this demo test form. Okay, and this form is given to participants upon completion of a user experience test. All right, something like that. Again, we're just staying, this is a demo, so we're staying vague. All right, now inside of Google Forms, there's a whole bunch of different types of questions that you can ask them, right? You've got multiple choice, check all that apply, short answer, paragraph, things like that. You can have them upload a file, maybe if you want to collect like ID information or something like that. But for this first option, we're going to start with just paragraph, okay? Short answer is going to allow them to type in whatever they want, but it's just going to be like 1 or 2 lines. You give them long answer text, and they're going to feel more comfortable giving you more or like a wordier response, which is kind of what you're looking for at this point, okay? So untitled question, and we will just say, please leave any additional feedback you'd like us to consider. Right? Like that's a good way to just open it up. You're saying please, you're just saying any additional feedback. So feel free to chime in on anything, even if, maybe there's something that we were asking you as you were testing and, there was something else you wanted to discuss with us. This is where you put it, right? Okay, and we're going to view this test, so you can preview it right here, or this survey. And this is what it's going to kind of look like, okay? And so as we go down here, let me just grab some lorem ipsum. We can kind of see what it looks like here. So let's grab this. Oops. I hate when the web page jumps on you because of ads. this is what it'll look like for the user, right? So as they type, it's going to keep growing, and then we can submit it, right? There's also a clear option for the user, so they can clear the form, start over again, okay? All right, so we've got our long form or free form feedback, right? And so again, this is going to be qualitative, okay? So you're not just asking them, did you complete the test, or did you struggle with this? It's not just going to be like a yes or no answer that you can kind of tally and compare with other users' tallies, right? This is going to be information that you have to read through and decipher and sort of like group into themes to be able to compare it with other users, okay? A lot of times, you know, that does take quite a bit of time. If you give this survey to 15 people, you're going to have to read through 15 free form responses. I do it at the end of every quarter because, you know, you have the ability to give me feedback. I highly encourage it. I read through every single one of them, and I incorporate as much of that feedback as possible into my future lessons. So again, I really value this type of feedback. I think that it's, you know, some of the most valuable feedback that you get on top of, you know, some of the more like quantitative testing that you do. Okay, so that's sort of the qualitative side of things. We also have the quantitative side of things, right? So if we go here and we hit new question, we have these options for multiple choice, checkboxes, drop downs. So, you know, all of these are a little bit different. Multiple choice is going to be select one option. All right, we see this in the past in Design 153 when I covered checkboxes versus radio buttons, okay? Multiple choice is going to offer you a radio button. You can see that right here. This is a radio button. A checkbox would be square, but a radio button only requires you to select one option, and it actually only allows you to select one option. Whereas a checkbox is going to allow you to select all that apply, really. So you can select multiple options here, okay? So obviously that's going to kind of change, you know, how you tally up this information and how it compares to other participants, right? If it's just multiple choice, you're selecting one option. Like maybe this is, were you able to successfully complete the test? Just a yes or no question, right? Yes or no, okay? And this is yes, but with some issues. Like that's always a good option, right? So it's like, yes, I did it, but it was a pain in the ass. Or no, I didn't do it for some reason. We don't really need to know at this point. We just need to know how many people successfully completed the test, right? So you look at this, and essentially what you're going to get is the ability to select just one, right? I don't remember if they allow you to, yeah, it doesn't look like they're going to let you give the user the ability to select more than one. But if you wanted it to just be one or multiple answers, then you can change it to checkboxes. It will leave your question there. You won't have to fill out the answers again. And, you know, that's going to look something like this. Okay, you can select all that apply if you wanted to. Terrible way to offer answering this type of question, in my opinion. This should really just be sort of a Boolean, yes or no, or yes with some issues. It's much easier to, you know, group the responses you get and sort of compare them. So yeah, checkboxes for all that apply. Like maybe this question is no longer were you able to successfully complete the test. It is how many issues did you face completing the test, right? And we could say some issues, lots of issues, no issues, right? And some people might not know like how many issues they had, but they might be somewhere between some issues and lots of issues, right? So this is where you kind of get into like the nuance of how people understand these questions, right? This could also just be sort of like a Boolean. You could make these like 1 to 3, 3 to 5 or something like that. Or I guess it would be like 4 to 6, right? And so on. You could do it like that, and then you'd probably just want multiple choice, right? Because you wouldn't want people selecting 1 through 3 and 4 through 6, okay? All right, so we've got multiple choice, we've got checkboxes. Let's just add a couple of these. So we've got our multiple choice, and we'll say, were you able to complete the test? We'll say yes, no, yes, but with some issues. All right, so we've got our questions here, and what I'm going to show you is how we can sort of make these reliant upon the other questions, meaning maybe this question only pops up if the user selects yes, but with some issues, right? So what we'd want to do is we'd want to put this one first, okay? And we can go to a section based on an answer. Let's add a section. Here we go. After section 1, continue to next section. No. We'll do this. Whoops, sorry. Okay, now I'm figuring it out here. Part 2. Follow-up response. This is what we want to do. So we go, how many issues did you have completing the test? Okay, section 2. And then if we hit this, we're going to go to section 2. All right. And here we go. Let's add another question here. Please leave additional feedback. That's going to be in section 3. Okay? So, our first question here is, were you able to complete the test? Okay? Yes or no? Or yes with some issues, right? If they select that, so watch this. Were you able to complete the test? We're going to say yes, but with some issues. Well, let's just see what happens. So if we hit yes, we should go to the follow-up response. How many? Okay, nope, that was incorrect. So we need to go back here. All right, we selected no. So if we select no, we need to go to section 2. And if we select yes, we also need to go to, part 2. Okay, so does that make sense? So if we select this answer, it's going to take us all the way down to our part 2, or we're going to call this the final question. Okay. All right. And if we select this one, we're going to go to section 2, which is the follow-up response to this question. Okay. So check this. If we go back, now let's try this. If we say no, we should go again to please leave any additional feedback you'd like to consider. But if we select yes, but with some issues, we should then see how many issues did you face. Okay? All right, so got that figured out. Let me just repeat that for anyone who's confused because, again, I had to find this little section button, which they moved on me. So we've got these 3 answers. This is kind of like the first question that sets up where the rest of the test will go. We just have 3 questions, right? We have, were you able to complete the test? We say, how many issues did you face completing the test? And you only get that if you said yes, but with some issues, okay? And our final question is just, please leave any additional feedback you'd like us to consider, okay? And so in order to separate these and give us the ability to kind of, choose your own adventure, if you will, we're using this section option right here, and you create these sections and you put your questions within those sections, and then you can choose which section to go to next upon selecting an answer. So again, here with these 2 answers, I just want them to go to the final question, right? And then with this answer, we're just going to the follow-up response, okay? So a couple different types of data we're collecting here, right? This is going to be quantitative. So let's just preview the whole form. Okay, and let's collect some data here. So were you able to complete the test? We're just going to say yes. We're going to say no additional feedback. Test worked great. Okay. We'll submit that response. Let's do it again. Were you able to complete the test? No, we weren't able to complete the test. And maybe the test didn't work on my device. Maybe that was the problem, right? Okay. Let's submit another one. Just to get like a second answer here. Let's see. I think buy now button should be stuck to the bottom of the page so it doesn't disappear when you scroll. Valid feedback, right? All right, and let's do one more with our other option here. We had 4 to 6 issues, tons of issues, not ready for production. I would quit the app. Okay, this person's angry. All right, cool. So we're in our, we're gonna go back to the form creator. Okay, and we can click on responses now because we have responses. I believe if you don't have any responses, it won't show this option. Okay. But this is the kind of information that we get from them, right? So we get some quantitative feedback, okay? 50% of our participants were able to complete the test, right? 25% were not, and 25% said yes, but with some issues, okay? So we can go ahead and highlight that, all right? And we'll come down here. How many issues did you face completing the test? All right, anybody who answered this also answered this. We know that, right? And 100% of the people had 4 to 6 issues. Now, we can quantify that by the fact that there's one response, right? So if this was like 5 people all had 4 to 6 issues, then obviously there's a very specific part of our app that's giving everybody the exact same issue, right? Or that's the conclusion that I would draw from that, okay? And with our final question, we have additional feedback you'd like us to consider. So if we were to read through all these results, we might be able to start coming up with some themes, okay? So this one person said, no additional feedback, test worked great. That's probably one of these people, right? Or sorry, one of these people who got through the test, okay? Test didn't work on my device. That's probably the person who said no. Or sorry, that's the red one, right? You can kind of start matching up the puzzle pieces here, right? I think buy now button should be stuck to the bottom of the page so it doesn't disappear when you scroll. Tons of issues, not ready for production. I would quit the app. All right, so we have a couple of responses here that result in a really, really unpleasant experience, right? So tons of issues, not ready for production. Test didn't work on my device. Like those are both like sort of game breaking or like experience breaking things, right? I think buy now button should be stuck to the bottom of the page so it doesn't disappear when you scroll. That is really good qualitative feedback, right? You're getting a suggestion from the user implying that they have a problem with this part of the app, right? So that's actually like relatively complex and, actionable feedback that you can take. So these are the types of responses we like, obviously, okay? So you can kind of see like when we start reading through these, we can start building a couple like themes here. We have people who flat out did not like our experience. We had a couple people with some issues, and then we had some people who, didn't have any issues. They thought it worked great. And generally, this is the spread that you're going to get in an app that is pretty new, okay? So, your first sort of like sprint out of the gate when you launch an app, it's going to be really mixed feedback, right? You're going to get a lot of people who use the app and enjoy it and get a lot of value out of it. You're going to get some people who flat out, don't have a motivation or don't have a reason to use the application. And then you're going to get some people who, find all the bugs that are still left inside of the production of this application. Anyways, so I think the questions that we asked here, these could all be used in both like an in-person and an asynchronous scenario, right? So, you might ask your user to complete this, and what you'll complete this in front of you when they're done with the test. And one thing that you might find is, the amount of issues that the user experience might be different than what you recorded, right? So when you record an issue, you can totally, because the test subject is right there, you can dig into a little bit more, or you can do what I recommend, which is just let them continue. If they have a question, they'll ask you while they're testing, right? But if you let them continue, you might find that, you recorded 3 or 4 issues and really they only felt like they had like 1 to 3 issues, So their overall experience might have been better than what you recorded. And from that, you can kind of gather that, yes, there's issues that you need to work on or address, but there's also a good chance that, you've done a good job otherwise, okay? And the user is not recognizing all of the issues that they're coming across because maybe you used good heuristic principles, right? And you've given them a good way to like prevent errors or correct mistakes or something like that. So there's lots of sort of like ways that this data can influence, your future decisions. But in general, it's great to like have a question like this and compare it to the responses that you gathered while the testing was happening. But anyways, and then on the flip side, if you're doing remote testing, this can be a good thing to include just like as a link at the end of that test and have them fill out like that. You can go and read the responses at a later time. To do that, all you're going to need to do is get a link, okay? You can get a link and or you can send it. You can also grab the link from there, okay? We can shorten it. We can grab this and we can send this to as many people as we want. We can throw it on the end of a presentation. We can throw it at the end of like a test on a web page or something like that and start collecting responses. So one of the cool things I will show, and then we'll be kind of wrapped up here, is if we go back to Google Forms, you can see that we don't just have to use these to collect test data, right? You can even use them for like a party invitation. Are you planning on coming? How many guests are you going to bring? What kind of food are you going to bring? Things like that, right? So, you can use this in your everyday life as well as testing, okay? So that's all I got for testing. I highly encourage you to build one of these forms next week when we start doing, I forget sometimes. So I don't believe I am requiring you create a survey. Yep. I'm not requiring a survey for experiment 2, but do want to cover them just because they can be a useful way to collect test data. Okay. If you want to include a survey in your testing, more than welcome to. Okay. It can be a great addition to your portfolio. How you collected those how you created the questions and how you collected the responses are all interesting things to prospective employers. Okay. So no requirement to create the survey, but, in a nutshell, this is sort of, how I use Google Forms, the types of questions that I think about and answer, and, when you should use them both in synchronous and asynchronous testing. All right. Any other additional questions, go ahead, ask me on Canvas. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I'll switch back here. And hopefully I see you all in the Q&As on Wednesday. Reminder, those are 6 p.m. Wednesday nights. You just jump into the Design 262 Teams. There's a link inside of your modules on Canvas, okay? All right, see you.